Hello my friends, on today's episode of building the world's first all-wheel drive Civic Type R, I want to get the engine and our freshly rebuilt transmission back in the car for hopefully the very last time before we actually go ahead and fire this thing up for the first time and hopefully drive it for the first time. So with that being said, before we put those goodies in, we need to go ahead and get our engine wiring harness installed. This includes the fuse box, this little relay box here, the wiring for the ABS pump that we extended. I do need to order up some loom or find loom here locally to make this look nice and pretty like a stock harness, but I don't have any here. That's easy to do when the harness is already in the car. Let's get that knocked out and we can move on with other fun stuff. Thankfully, this harness is very easy to remove and install, because I'm sure in the future, when we make this engine bay look nice and pretty, there's gonna be a lot of relocating of fuse boxes and wire tucking going on, but it takes like 15 minutes to pull, so not a big deal. Harness is back in. And I definitely went fairly long on our ABS wiring, which is exactly what I wanted, so we can put it wherever. I'm gonna get this all sorted. We need to find a good way to attach everything underneath the frame rail, the harness and all the brake lines and whatnot, so they're out of the way. But this should look really nice. This right here should be the last time the motor is on the engine crane. That is, of course, as long as it runs. I did buy this motor used. We already took a look in the intake ports before, and it seems as if it sat out with no covering because all the valves are fairly rusty. I honestly think it's been in and out of this car like 50 times, maybe even more, maybe a bit less, but regardless, an ungodly amount of times it's been in and out, and I am very excited to have it in for the last time. Before she goes in, we do have this very nice side mount pulley kit for the K24. This is from KTuned. So this guy right here is actually going to replace our crusty motor mount that we have on there now. Now that we have the setup to do it, it's so tempting to not put anything on and just go through and zinc plate all the bolts. But then we'd really get nothing done. I won't install it now, but I'll show you guys where this thing goes. She'll sit like that. Little Allen's will go in here. And yeah, that's how she'll sit. Very nice part from KTuned. I'll go ahead and link it down in the description box below. Now, of course, before we install our very beautiful transmission onto the engine, we need a clutch. And that is where our good friends at ACT come into play. This should be a clutch and flywheel kit, AR2-XT G6. So we got a 6-puck sprung disc. We have our flywheel and we have the pressure plate. As always, ACT includes every little thing that you're gonna need. Throwout bearing, little thrust bearing, alignment tool, stickers, instructions, everything. The whole 9 yards. At least something original from the Type R is gonna stay on this car, and that is the flywheel bolts. After I had the clutch bolts back out on that car with the XD Twin, I like to Loctite everything, so flywheel and clutch both get Loctited. I don't know if it's necessary, but it helps me sleep at night. The flywheel on a K goes to 76 foot-pounds. I've only ever had one pucked clutch in my life, and I'll be straight with you guys, I didn't really like it, but it wasn't an ACT, so I think the ACT, I mean, they're kind of known for driving very nice. So I think this one is gonna be a lot better, and she should handle all the sauce. All the sauce. All the pressure plate bolts go to 19 foot-pounds or 228 inch-pounds. I know I kind of touched on this yesterday, but I'm trying to find a fine line between making everything like this transmission or leaving stuff like the motor. Because I don't want to go so in depth on this build to where I never want to drive it because it's perfect, but I also don't want it crusty. So that's kind of the approach I'm taking. Stuff like the trans or that T case that is completely filthy and destroyed, I'm going through it. And stuff like the motor where it's, you know, a 8 out of 10. For now at least, I'm not going to go through it. A little bit of grease for everything under here. This little ball where the fork rides, the shaft where the bearing slides, and of course the input that goes into the thrust bearing. The 10 out of 10 trans on the 1 out of 10 motor looks a little bit ridiculous, but it is what it is. Let's get her in the car for the last time. I did buy a bunch of new hardware for the build. I don't want anything janky hardware wise. That has got to be the worst. It's having like 15 mil heads, 14 mil heads, 18 mil heads, 17 mil heads. These three here are for the trans plate. See how much better this is? We have that instead of that. We got it in the car, mounted up with all the new hardware. That's how she looks. Everything's 17 mil head. Of course, those are Ellens. And over here, everything's also 17 mil head. One thing I just realized, it looks like we are gonna have to pull off this mount to get this setup on, but we can deal with that. We can deal with that later on. For now, we have 1,000 parts to open up. I do want to go through the T case. As you can see, it looks like the transmission used to look. But before we do that, I've been dying to open up these boxes of parts. So you guys know we've been working with KTuned on this project. They sent over a metric shit ton of parts, and then Bull Boost Performance surprised me with a little care package in the PO box. So I'm excited to look at all the parts they sent over as well. First up from KTuned is a sticker with a nice billet fuel rail. Look at that. Vossen engraved right on the end. That's gonna be sick. Of course, we can't put that on until the manifold goes on, and we're also waiting on the injectors, so we can save that for later. This guy is for the manifold. So with the manifold running, we need to run this adapter. So that guy just bolts on right there. Quick and easy install. And that can also go on with our intake manifold later. Another intake manifold item, a billet TPS. This can go on right now. I've been dying to get this thing on. Pull out the stock janky dipstick, and in goes the KTuned dipstick. Some 10AN stuff for the valve cover. We still need to build a catch can, so that can be later on. Coolant recirc hose, that is for the under manifold thing. This is the belt for the pulley kit. Ooh, I've been needing this guy. Got the little filler neck that goes here. I always like to put a little bit of grease on these O-rings before they go on. As you can see, there's two different fittings. This is for a traditional radiator hose. This would be for a -16. This guy right here goes in place of the factory one. You can see stock, it shoots way off to the side. This guy pulls it straight forward. Now from Bull Boost Performance, we have this little thermostat swivel adapter thing. This guy's super cool. Definitely gonna be using this. A firewall shifter grommet. We may need that guy later on. I'm not sure what we're gonna do for shifter cables and the base yet. Little shifter cable base. This guy sits like that. That looks very nice on our transmission. Hell yeah, I like that. Let's go ahead and bolt that guy on. And last but not least, looks like they sent over their shifter base. Now I think this guy is Type R specific, so it should bolt right into our car. I am still, like I said, undecided on what we're doing for cables. I do know KTuned has a very nice set of cables. The cables that are on the car I don't think are gonna work. We need to like actually sit down and go through it better. But yeah, that thing is freaking beautiful. Just found another box of KTuned stuff. First up, we have their coil pack cover. Goes very, very nicely with, ooh, that looks so sick on the valve cover. Last but not least, we have this beauty of a unit. A full race grade tucked wiring harness for the K24. Now, of course, we're not to the wiring portion of the build yet, but when we get to the wiring portion of the build, this guy right here is gonna make life super easy. All the stuff that I just showed you from KTuned, I'll go ahead and plop down below in the description box. Also, a big thank you to Bull Boost Performance for sending out the care package. I really appreciate it, guys. Next thing I want to move on to is some water pump stuff. So in order to clear the manifold, as far as I am concerned, is this whole thing has to be shaved off. But let's do a quick little mock-up on this thing before it goes on the car and make sure that is true. So I've been trying to get this thing to fit, and I finally realized what this is, and I'm just gonna do what Josh did on his build, and we're gonna shave all this off. I'm gonna weld that up closed and then just put a -10 fitting down lower somewhere. So we can make all the space in the world now. Lop that off, get it all cleaned up, make it look nice and pretty. And whenever we get our TIG welder, slop in a -10 down there, and that'll make life way easier. Here's a before. And here she is after. Now, of course, we need to do a little bit of welding. That hole right there goes straight through. That used to be the breather. We're gonna add the breather there. Maybe do a little bit of coatings on it. And other than that, she's all finished up. And speaking of welders, look what has arrived. Picked up the same welder that my brother Austin has and the same welder that we welded up the fuel cells with. Just ran to the welding store. We needed another tank for the TIG. So we got a bottle of Argon, Harbor Freight Special welding cart, and then of course some filler rod. So I'm gonna go ahead, get everything assembled, get the welder chilling up on the cart, and our first piece with our own welder, our own TIG welder, is gonna be filling in that hole. I'm gonna try to do it as best as I can. I want it to look like the hole is never there. So she might take me a while, but it'll be worth it in the end. Well, boys, so we got the TIG all set up. I called my brother Austin and kind of went through the settings with him, got her all dialed for aluminum. This is our first piece that we're gonna attempt with our own welder. This hole right here needs to be filled up. Gave her a quick, nice little sandblast, try to get it cleaned up. Austin did say the most important thing is to keep everything clean. So he suggested wiping it all down with acetone or something like acetone, wipe down the tungsten and the part, and then we can go from there. For my very first job with my own TIG, that's how it turned out. That was an oily mess. The whole time I was welding, there's oil coming out. There are a little bit of pinholing going on, but I think it should be fine. The rest of this guy has pinholing anyway, so it kind of matches. But that is the finished product. Of course, we do need to weld in the 10 AN bung here, and then I'll go through and get her coated up but for now, that should do the trick. So as you can see, now we have all of the clearance in the world. Looks somewhat factory-ish, which was of course the end goal. And if I'm not mistaken, we should be able to run a factory replacement alternator. Let's take a look. Yes, we certainly can. And being that we can put that guy in the factory location, you wanna know what that means? That means we have a new daily, and here's why. This, my friends, is gonna be nice. So usually we would have the power steering pump up there. If I'm not mistaken, it goes power steering pump, alternator, AC compressor, and with the regular Honda build, you'd move the power steering from there to there, alternator from there to there, AC goes from there to there. But being that we have electric power steering, that guy and that guy stays in the factory location, which means we can actually run, provided we can get everything else situated, which should be pretty easy, we can run AC on our all-wheel drive swapped Type R, which is insane. Also picked up an RSX starter. Pretty much every accessory that's going on this car is for an RSX. That's what I was told to do, and apparently it was correct because it's all fitting. So that's RSX, 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 everything's RSX. Hopefully the bolt for the Type R starter will work here. One more Type R part going on, the starter bolt. All right, friends, I'm gonna call that a wrap on today. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Peace out, and I'll see you boys in the next episode. What up, boys? It is still the same day. I just came back to the shop. I've actually been here for a few hours and enjoying this beautiful thunderstorm we got. And I'm also zinc plating a bunch of hardware. As you can see, we got the chemistry lab open again, and I'm just doing all the hardware for some stuff up front. It's really hard to figure out what I want gold hardware and what I want the silver hardware. So you can see here, I did one of the motor mount bolts gold, and one of them is still just regular clear zinc, or I guess silver zinc. Drop a comment below. Is there such a thing as too much gold? Because like it'd be sick to do all this hardware with the gold chromate, which is what I've been doing for all of the stuff up here, like the water mount bolts, alternator, AC compressor, all that stuff is getting the gold zinc, which I think is gonna look really nice on that. But we still could do like the bell housing bolts in gold, all the motor mount bolts in gold, stuff like that. So drop a comment below. That's the point of this little clip. Drop a comment below. Is there such thing as too much gold, or should we tone it back on the gold and leave some of it? Like, for example, we could leave like the motor mount hardware silver. Comment below. I want to know.